Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of Watch Orakix. I'm really excited today because I get to bring to you the man behind Trafford watches, Nathan Trafford. Um, I've been talking with him the last couple of weeks and kind of getting to know him a little bit, and I think that he's got some really awesome designs that I'd like to share with you today. So, without further ado, we'll bring on Nathan Trafford. Nathan, how's it going, my friend?
What's up, buddy? Good to see you.
Yeah. So, how have
Thanks
you
for
been?
having me.
Yeah, of course, of course. How have you been through life these days?
Oh, not too bad. The world's just completely shut down. So dealing with that. My wife doesn't agree with the length of my beard right now, but nobody else can see me, so that's all
Yeah.
right.
I don't have much of a beard right now, but my wife doesn't agree with the length of that either. All right. Well, Nathan, I've got a couple questions lined up to kind of help us get to know you a little better and also kind of show some of your work. Um, let's just start off with like the easy basic questions. Like, what is the meaning of life?
Ooh, donuts.
Uh,
No, that's a tough one.
Okay, well, I will take donuts. I was set for whiskey or 42, but I think I'll take donuts.
Oh, this is apple juice. It's definitely apple juice.
Okay. So where are you from, man?
All over the place. Originally England, lived there for about 6.5 years. Uh, Had a little spell in Pittsburgh when I was a kid, and been in Texas ever since. So my accent is kind of very confused.
Yeah, I don't blame you. My wife is from England too, and
Oh,
her,
really?
yeah, her accent is it's there, but you don't like you don't really realize that it's there until she starts talking to other people from England, and then you're just like, "Whoa."
Yeah,
Okay.
that's Christmases are very confusing for me when I have family mixed with Americans. I just don't know how to talk, so I don't talk.
Right? All right, man. Well, one thing I'm kind of curious about is what do you do besides designing? Like, what is your day job?
My day job, I'm a creative director slash designer uh, down at a small branding shop down here in Austin. All the way from logos to website design, kind of spanning the full spectrum of branding. And I love it. It's a lot of fun. Been doing it for a long time. So,
Awesome.
my day job.
So aside from your designing for work and your designing from Facer, what do you do for yourself?
Well, when it's not a pandemic in the world, I
Right.
really enjoy going out and playing soccer. I'm terrible at it, as my team will attest to, but I have a lot of fun with it. And then besides that, I like woodworking. I like doing all that kind of hands-on stuff. And much like you, I have a little 2-year-old daughter, so that's kind of puts everything else on the back burner.
Right. Yeah, no, I get that. I fully get that.
I live for those afternoon naps that she takes.
Yeah.
Those, those are nice.
Yeah, my wife the other day, she was teasing me because, I'm still going to work every day now. And th- the other day I asked her what she was doing during my son's nap or what she was gonna do, but I said, "What are you gonna do on your lunch break?" And she totally gave me
It's so accurate,
right. Yeah, it's like, what are you gonna do when you finally have a few minutes to eat something and like
right?
relax?
Yeah, you have all these grand plans of stuff you're going to get done around the house, and 90% of the time you end up sitting on the couch looking at the internet on your phone
You just
for
need a
2 hours.
break.
Yeah.
So, so it sounds like you really enjoy your job, though,
I
and
do.
and
Yeah.
you enjoyed designing for Facer. What would you
Yeah.
be your dream job?
I'm a mechanical watch guy at heart. That's kind of where I come from with that. I've always had a thing for mechanical watches. So I think, if I could pick anything, it would be start my own little micro brand and go that way. Start making physical mechanical watches would be really cool. Not that I don't love designing digital faces, you know,
Right.
but it's a that's definitely a dream.
Well, if you need a partner on that, you know where to find me.
Well, I've
Um,
seen your 3D skills, so that sounds good to me.
yeah, I actually one of the goals I set out for this whole process is that someday one of my digital designs will be a real physical mechanical watch, and I'm still trying to figure out how that's going to work, how I'm going to make that happen, but absolutely that's one of my end game goals.
Well, if you figure it out, let me know because same boat.
All right. Um, so then, if you were a super mechanical guy, how did you get into digital design?
Well,
Aside for like the watch aspect, not necessarily the main job aspect.
right, yeah. Honestly, it kind of surprised me that in retrospect, that it took so long for me to get into it. Really, because I've only been doing this for probably a year, maybe a little more than a year now, and I've been designing forever, and I've loved watches for pretty much ever. And I think it took me being disgruntled and bored at my last job to where I just was looking for something else to do. And I'm looked down at this watch on my wrist. I'm like, why aren't I doing this? Like, that sounds like so much fun to be able to create my own. And I didn't even know about Facer back then. So it was just kind of building these things for fun for myself, just to do it. And then I discovered Facer, and the rest is history. So
Nice. Yeah. So you then had your smartwatch first. It wasn't like a I'm
no,
gonna get
no,
this to design. It's a I had this and then I just stumbled across it kind of.
not even. I was designing these things, and somebody at work was like, "Hey, man, that's pretty cool. Why don't you make one that actually works on?" Because he was wearing a smartwatch and showed me. I was like, "Oh, I didn't even know you could do that." So I went and checked out Facer, and I actually made at least my first one on Facer before I ever had a smartwatch, and
Nice.
and then shortly after it, I went and got one. Um, I think I'm up to 4 or 5 of them now. So
Yeah, I know. I feel yeah. I think I have six. Which do I have any mechanical watches? No, actually.
really,
Surprisingly, yeah.
I know what
Um,
I'm gonna get you for Christmas.
I'm excited. No, I actually it's funny because of the fact that I used to always just buy like $12 Walmart watches because I just demolish them, and I was like I'm
Mm.
never going to spend a decent amount on a watch cuz I'm going to destroy it. But then I was given a smartwatch, and then at that point I was like, okay, now I love
Take
this,
care of it.
and now I have to figure out how to not destroy it. So, um and then ever since, I haven't really broke one yet.
Nice.
So yeah, I guess it's all about just caring, paying attention. For
Keeping
me
it away
anyway.
from the 2-year-olds.
Yes, actually. I do actually have one broken watch and it was from him, not me. That's why I say it wasn't me smashing it, it was him.
Oh, I understand.
Um so then I'm going to go out on a crazy limb here and say your favorite style to design is analog.
Pretty much, it is and it isn't. I absolutely enjoy it, but I also like to think that they fund my art projects on the side. Because I definitely have some crazy things on Facer that I enjoy doing, like these wild minimalist ones that they're little art projects.
Right.
They're not the most popular or anything like that, but I enjoy doing them. But yes, my heart is always in the analog mechanical world. um, but you'll find with a few of them that I do enjoy trying to bridge the gap and bringing in as much digital stuff where it makes sense to. So I don't know. It's all kind of fun.
So you kind of like to venture into that hybrid area as well.
Yeah.
And I think that's where a lot of fun is lies for me as well, just because it's like, how can I incorporate both and still have like a unique feel?
Right.
But yeah, I kind of, with the dial enthusiast, is what your tag is. So I figured must be an analog guy.
Yeah, totally. I'm not ashamed.
So since we're on the topic of favorites, boxers or briefs?
Oh, boxer briefs.
You don't actually have to answer that. I'm just throwing weird shit at you. Okay. So my favorite part of talking to any other designer is, what does your workflow look like? So I'm super excited to see like what it is that you do, as far as your workflow. Um, and Nathan actually has provided us with a short video that we're going to watch in the background as he kind of talks a little bit about his workflow. So I'm going to switch on over to that video really quick, and I'll just let you tell us a little bit about, how you get from point A to point B.
Sure. Well, a big part of my process is, the inspiration and the research behind it. But I'll talk about that in a little bit. But as far as the physical process, I'm definitely in the digital world, but everything usually starts with a sketch. So I'll be thinking about what type of watch I want to make. Go through several sketches usually, and land on one, trying to get it right in my head. Then I bring that in and go into Illustrator, Adobe Illustrator, and that's kind of where all of the foundations are laid, right? I'm not too concerned about lighting effects and textures and any of that type of stuff at this point. What I'm really doing here is getting the shapes right, getting the sizes of things right. Like I want to make sure that typefaces are legible at a certain size. So constantly checking that and making sure everything's readable and okay that way. So after Illustrator, I bring everything in sort of piece by piece into Photoshop, layer by layer, and then add lighting, add textures. Kind of see adding this leather texture back there. That doesn't happen in Illustrator. All this is just in Photoshop. Adding, glass textures and all that, just to give it that sort of polished, real look. That you can do it to a certain degree in Illustrator, but it's just a lot easier. And I think that the final product is usually a lot better in Photoshop. So once I'm happy with all of the different pieces, the lighting I'm getting, the textures, it's a case of breaking out all the different pieces to prep it for building it in Facer, which is what you're seeing here, just saving out a million different layers and then pulling them all in individually into Facer. And if you've done your homework right, if you've made all your layers correctly, the Facer part of it should be kind of easy. I try to keep everything basically the same size and in a square, and so that everything kind of rotating on the same axis, and I don't need to worry too much about that. So then it's really the hardest part for me is the coding at the end of it and making it work. I'm not a coder by nature, so so that's kind of it as far as the physical process of how we get from beginning to end in a design.
Awesome. I feel like you planned that response out really well, because it ended right, at the end of your video.
Did it? Good.
Yeah.
Sweet.
So
I'll say that was on purpose, but
it just kind
I
of
just
worked out.
ran out of words.
So, I noticed that while we're watching that video, you did your Illustrator stuff, and then when you hopped over to um, Photoshop, it almost looked like all the lighting and stuff that you did. It almost looked like you hand painted that. Is that accurate?
Some of it is definitely painted. Some of the things almost feel like they just need a little bit of an uh, imperfect touch, because um, real life isn't perfect. Real watches, they're pretty accurate and awesome, but you'll get little blemishes on the glass. You get crazy reflections on the glass and stuff too. So when from my personal experience at least, when you make it perfect, it almost feels too perfect, so I kind of like some of the little imperfections here and there.
And I think that might be like the secret sauce to your face is that you look at it and you're just like, I really love this, but I can't pinpoint exactly what it is that makes it as special as it is.
Mhm.
Because I mean, it looks awesome, but there's just like that added touch. I think it really makes a difference. That just sublimity is like, yo, this is seriously awesome.
Thanks, man. I think some of that is just knowing your device too, and like testing it on your device. Everything looks really awesome on the computer screen and big and huge, but a big part of the process as well, especially when you get into the building part, is just testing it over and over again, because like some things don't even show up on the device, so it's just kind of going back and forth with that and making sure it looks good on watch as well.
All right. Well, real quick before we move on to all these other questions that I have for you, I do actually have that watch that we just watched him design here on the screen right now, and I just want to check out just the way it looks. Like everybody can take a look and see. This is what it looks like when it's actually moving. Does this one have any interactions to it?
Yeah, if you click the little glass area at the bottom, it switches out the wheel in the background, so you're kind of reading between battery steps, heart rate, and a current temperature, I think. And then if you click in the very middle of the dial, the hands kind of fly out of the way if
Oh,
they're
okay.
if
I
they're covering up.
I was trying to switch through the different dials so that everybody can kind of see how that works, and the hands were in the way, so I just fast
There
forwarded
you
a little
go.
bit. But hey, you know what? You've got a doohickey for that. I don't know what you want to call that, but
That's what I would call it.
so yeah, that's
Doohickey.
awesome. All right, well this face looks gorgeous, by the way.
Thanks, man.
Um, so I was really cool to get to see how it was made. Where do
It
you
took me
get
three
the
minutes to make it. It's crazy.
right? I know, so fast. See, this is why he's amazing.
Mhm.
Um, so you say you do research before you actually do it. You kind of pull inspiration and design it on paper. Where do you find that inspiration?
Man, inspiration is such a nebulous word. Inspiration can kind of really come from anywhere, and it's one of the things that I'm sort of most passionate about as well, from a teaching standpoint. Um, just through life and my career and stuff, I've had an opportunity to mentor a lot of junior designers and helping them get on the path and stuff. And it's one of the most rewarding things. I love doing it and helping and teach them. But one of the things that they always struggle with the most, I feel like, is what we call the blank page syndrome. You're given a task or to create whatever, let's call it a website, and you have no rules. And you're just faced with a blank page, and you don't know what to do. You don't know where to turn or where to look or where to get started. Um, and just a lot of people struggle with that, I think. So I have a couple of things that around inspiration specifically that have helped me that I think can really help some other people as well. I've talked about it a little bit in the Facer forums or chat, but I think it's good to talk about it a little bit more as well. So one of the first things is to not necessarily look for inspiration in similar things, right? So if I'm going back to my work, if I'm building a website for shoes, I shouldn't necessarily go and look at a bunch of other shoe websites to find inspiration, right? I would go and look at websites maybe for travel or even magazines about sports, that type of stuff. So the same kind of applies to watch design. If we go and look for inspiration to create a new watch, something unique and original, yeah, it's good to look at other watches, but something cool might come out of somewhere completely out of the realm of watches, which kind of leads me to this second point that I like to make. I have this analogy that I like to talk about sandboxes, right? So if you have two kids, and one of the kids is in a giant sandbox, there's no edges on the sandbox at all, and you give them all these different tools. And there's sand everywhere, and you're like, all right, go make something cool. He's going to run around and he's going to make a little thing here and a little thing there. None of it's really going to make sense. And he's going to get bored with one tool and go and do a different thing. Whereas the second kid, let's say he's got a tiny little sandbox with very defined edges, and you only give him one or two tools. He's got to think about what he's going to make in that sandbox before he ever makes it, and then be very deliberate about how he goes about making it, right? He's gonna, I gotta make some stairs here because I only have this spot over here to make this. So applying that to the moral of that is setting rules for yourself is a very important part of the creative process. The more rules that you can set, and those are from internal rules that you're setting for yourself, but also rules that exist in the physical sense as well. So for watch design, you can say, it's going to be an analog. That's a rule. It's living on this watch face, which is 320 by 320 pixels, right? So that's a rule. I don't want it to be digital. I want it to be only analog. I want there to be steps and heart rate and temperature, and that's it. And just setting those rules for yourself is very good because it makes you focus in on what you want to do. Outside of those physical things, the basic things, let's call it for watches, you can set rules for yourself conceptually as well, right? I think concept for watch design specifically can be really tough. So going back to the first point of looking elsewhere, find something that is really interesting to you and apply it to a series maybe, right? So let's say I'm really interested in the World War II Allied forces tanks, for example. You can make a whole series of watch faces where you can go in and pull different textures and different elements and really go to town going into research. Like there's dials and stuff inside these tanks, and then when you're done with it, you have this nice collection that are all kind of married together. They work well together, and it was a hell of a lot easier than trying to come up with different things that all go together. So that would be my challenge, is to think about it as a collection to start with, but look elsewhere for inspiration, set yourself rules. And I think you're setting yourself up for a much quicker and a much better process and a much better final product.
Awesome. I mean, I think everything that you're saying is pretty gold, when it comes to trying to look into the future and planning ahead a little bit, and keeping yourself focused on the path. um I am very much different.
And that's fine.
but at the same time, I think that if I had those ideals that you're talking about and like that process, that mindset, I would have a lot more finished products.
Yeah, I mean, so, I mean, looking at the latest ones, like that one that we showed with the video, those were all based around cafe racers, right? So cafe racers are a very specific subgenre of motorcycles. They're sort of vintagey, sporty, but still like normal, get you around town kind of bikes. So applying those, I have three in that series right now, but it's like looking at what are some of those specific things about cafe racers that are really cool. You know, one of them has the pinstripes in it. The other one is taking inspiration directly from the dials that you see on these cafe racers. And the third one, which we looked at in the video, is taking inspiration from the helmets that are in the cafe racer world, right? They all sort of have the leather interior. It's never, you know, like stereotypical motorcycle padding stuff in there. It's always this leather and it's black, and then that bottom glass area is kind of pulling inspiration from the glass. It's always sort of a rounded bubble glass on the front of that, so you can really pull inspiration from anywhere. And I think that's half of the fun, is figuring that stuff out.
I think that's awesome. The way that you kind of look at the process is really fascinating. So you said there was two other faces in that kind of series. Would
Yeah.
that be the Ascot?
No.
No.
So I did a big race series of like vintage style race car type of stuff.
Like
It's very similar sort of
Labonte,
world.
Rutherford.
Right. So I
Yeah.
have the CR1, CR is Cafe Racer, CR1,
Okay.
CR2, and this one's the CR3. And
Okay. I didn't actually see the one and two, so that's why I was kind of confused. But I
they're in there
did
somewhere.
the Ascot, Labonte, Rutherford. Are those also kind of inspired by race themes?
Right. Yeah. So those are like vintage race car, more so specifically,
Yeah.
uh, from like the 50s and 60s.
The
And
Labonte
those
I
are fun too.
recognized. That one's the
Yeah.
one that we can see on the screen right now, and that one's one
Okay.
of my favorites.
Cool.
We've already looked at the Ascot, and then we're about to look at the Rutherford, and um, this was also another one of my favorites. Just that those series kind of seem like they went together, so that's why I asked.
Yeah. And they all kind of have stripes. So
Yeah,
that's the biggest piece of advice I can give. When in doubt, add stripes,
right.
and
Yeah,
it will sell.
it's good. It's good. Stripes are good.
But
Um,
yeah, so that I'm kind of in this race driving automobile type of gig right now, and because there's a lot to pull from. There really is. Like even colors and stuff, you can go back to, I think the Ascot specifically. I went back and found paint chip samples from 1960s BMWs, and there's just like all these crazy cool colors that I never would have picked on my own probably. But that just made that whole process easier because I didn't have to think about it.
that's awesome because actually I did cycle through all the colors,
Hmm.
and there was a lot of really cool colors. I think personally I would land on the black and red. You know, that's kind of my jam. But I also do
Sporty.
like
Yeah.
the. I mean, I like them all honestly. There's not a single color combo on there that I don't like. But
Thanks.
so we've talked a little bit about your inspiration and how you get to point A to point B. What do you think is the hardest part?
Oh, well, for me, it's the code aspect of building these things. I can usually get myself around the design. You know, I have my processes for that. Whether it's just if I get stuck designing, I'll just put it away and sit on it for a while and come back to it. But code, man, I have relied heavily on other designers within the Facer platform to get some of that stuff going. Some of the designers uh, are amazing what they do with the code. I don't even understand it. Like Gauss is awesome to start with because he leaves all of his inspection mode on, so I feel like I need to thank Gauss with like in the code in all my watches because I
Right.
probably pulled the code from his watch. Um, but some of them like Mike O'Day, I'm like struggling to make hands turn around, and he's like doing rocket science in his watches. I don't even understand it. It's crazy. But that's definitely the hardest part for me. But I'm
Okay.
learning slowly.
Yeah, and then I mean, I think that that's probably one of the biggest challenges for most people because I'm not a coder, so I'm in the same boat. But if I'm not mistaken, the Facer code is kind of proprietary. There's a lot of similar things, I think, but I honestly don't even know. So that's the part that is kind of like the tags and stuff. Like I think that's
Right.
the proprietary part, but like the way the code is built kind of seems similar. So it's like I could see people just being able to jump in and go, but for me it was like, okay, here's step one.
Right.
Uh,
Uh,
what is step one again?
yeah. Yeah. No. And that being said, like, I make it sound like it's super hard. Like, you can learn pretty quickly. And to Facer's credit specifically, like the ability to look at other watches and learn from that gets you up to speed pretty quick. They have a lot of tutorials and stuff as well. Um, so they do a good job with it. It's just me personally not
Right.
having any code background at all. Um, but if I can make it work, anybody can.
Right. And actually, this project that I'm working on, for those of you who don't know, because this hasn't been announced yet, not only am I going to be doing designer interviews, but I also am going to be doing video tutorials to teach you everything that I can think of that I know about designing watch faces. Stay tuned for that in the future.
I will be watching those because I need to.
And then also, another thing is I plan on bringing guest designers on, not just for an interview purpose, but for hey, your workflow is different than mine. What can you teach me? What can you teach everyone? And because one of the things that I really liked about the Facer community is their willingness to help, and I want to be able to give
Totally.
back to that community. So if you need help now, go to the Facer community. They're going to be able to teach you everything you need to know. I'm just going to try to make it easier to find. Anyway, so what advice would you give to other new designers, or did I just take it from you?
Go watch Orakix videos is my advice. Um,
I meant
uh
more of the go to the community.
huh. Yes, that number one. If you want help, just learning how to build for sure. Start there. Generally, gosh, all the stuff about inspiration and that is good. I would say don't try and emulate a process. I have my process that works for me, and every other designer has their process that works for them. I've seen Orakix doing 3D work, and I'm just like, what? How? What? I don't understand. That's so different than my workflow, but the output is awesome. So that's been one of the cool things that I've seen. Um, so I'd say stick to your process, stick to what you know. And if you need to learn some things, don't beat yourself up if you don't learn it right away. It's just one of those things. You got to put the time in and learn it. And as far as that side of things as well, I think um, the cloning. We could have a whole nother we could have a whole nother video conversation about cloning. But my 2 cents on it is that I think it's learning to recreate watches and create things for yourself is an important part of the process. If I think back to art school, we were asked to recreate paintings and drawings from masters. So it shouldn't be looked down upon. Sort of creating copies, if you will. Where you run into trouble is if that becomes your gig, right? If you try and sell them and claim them as your own, I don't think that's right. I think using them to learn from and build a knowledge base of how to do these things is totally fine. And Facer has a great feature where you can build as much as you want and not publish it, and you can put it on your watch and have that that Rolex or whatever you want to make on your watch if you want. But keeping it to yourself, I think, is a good piece of advice as well.
All right. Yeah. I mean, if I'm being 100% honest, I have copied a Gauss watch or two. I said that right, did I?
I believe so. I think
Okay.
you need to put some more
More.
oomph behind it, some more German behind
Right.
it.
Yeah.
Gauss.
I know that you have been instructed how to say his name by him himself. So
I had
I
to
hope
ask. I
I
did.
hope I get to have an interview with him someday where he could do the same for me. But um yeah, I have copied one or two of his. Not so much just like the features, but just the base, because his, like, as a 3D guy myself, he is like the king 3D, and so trying to learn his techniques and the way he is able to create things is, I think it is really important to just kind of understand how it works. But then once you get to that point, it's like, okay, now how can I make this um like the ability that I have created, how do I make that my own? So yeah, I think that's great. That's good. um so then you said you have like 4 or 5 smartwatches. What is your favorite? Like what's your jam?
Currently, so for look and feel and just sort of the physical design of it, I'm really liking this one right now. This is an older one. It's a Armani. Found a good deal on it on eBay, but it's just like nice and thick and heavy and feels like a good solid watch. And it's got a nice big screen with minimal bezel. But in terms of functionality and snappiness and responsiveness, I'm really liking this guy. This is a Skagen Falster 3, and I'm really liking it. It's got a cool minimalist design, which I really appreciate. So yeah, that's where I'm at right now. I'm looking forward to some of the ones I'm hearing about coming out.
Right. So do you have any Tizen watches, any Samsung watches?
I don't. And I hear
Oh,
there's going to be a new one. I'm like on the fence. Do I need to buy an older one? Do I wait for the new one?
it's a tough decision. Tough decision. I do have a Tizen, and it's actually my everyday watch, but I do like the fact that I have both. That's another thing that I'd recommend, is if you really want to push your brand, maybe try to have one of each, just because that way you can test on both platforms. But yeah, that's just my 2 cents. What do you? Speaking of all these new watches that you're talking about, where do you think, like, what do you think is next? Where do you think watches are going? So as far as smartwatches and mechanical watches.
Well, for mechanical watches, I don't. They're not going to go away, right? There's debate about that, and smartwatches have so much more of the market and stuff like that. They're outselling mechanical watches 10-1 or whatever. I don't know. That doesn't really matter to me. Mechanical watches, I think, are always going to be around. There's something really awesome about having a tiny machine that's just cogs and screws and bent wires on your hand that somehow keeps track of time. It's amazing. So I don't think those are going away, and you can point to Kickstarter for that. The top 100 most successful Kickstarters or something like that. A bunch of them are watches, mechanical watches specifically. So I think there's always going to be a place for it. Smartwatches, I'm really looking forward to the hardware catching up, the chips, the screens, right? We're kind of stuck. I think we've gotten used to our awesome phone screens and how fast and zippy they are. We're still waiting on the watches to catch up, which they are, but they're not quite there yet, in my personal opinion. So I'm really excited about what's going to be happening for that. But in terms of the two together and how they live together, that's a super interesting space to me. That, again, we could have a whole nother conversation about it. I'd need another glass of apple juice before we tackle that. But I imagine so many things. Like I said, I was a mechanical watch guy forever, and only just got into the smartwatch game. And I find myself, even when I'm wearing mechanical watches, I've gotten used to looking down at my wrist and expecting to see step count and stuff, and things like that, and heart rate, and it's not like I'm disappointed when I look at my mechanical watch, because it's still a cool thing. But like, I think there's real opportunity in there for somewhere down the line. I know they're doing. I have several of them, the hybrid smartwatches and stuff, where they're physical hands and they connect via Bluetooth, and you can get your steps and stuff that. But they're like one trick ponies. That's like all they do, and it's kind of it's glitchy. It's not just right yet. But you can see it someday down the line. Somebody figures out how to combine the mechanical nature of these watches with some of the smart functionality. I think could be really cool. And whether that's with the dials or whether there's some sort of glass interface type of thing, I would love to have my awesome mechanical watch and then have a glass interface that I could turn off and on as I needed. If I get a notification or whatever and it's on the glass, nothing to do with the watch. So I don't know. I think there's definitely some cool stuff that could happen down the line.
And I think that it will. I mean, watches have always been a huge thing, and they always will. That's a cool thing about it. I think that watch enthusiasts, and there's a lot out there, they're never gonna stop pushing it. So
yeah, and I mean, I think smartwatches are more utilitarian in nature anyway. You get them because you want to track your fitness and get emails in the middle of the night on your watch. I don't know, but mechanical watches are really more of a dress piece as well. They're not as utilitarian as they used to be, like for tracking time at the races and stuff. But I lost my train of thought, so I'm just going to stop talking there.
No worries. And actually, I've been scrolling through your watches here, and I did actually find your CR1 and CR2, and yeah, I actually did see them. I guess I didn't pay attention to the name of them, but yeah, those are. So we've got our CR1, our CR2 over here on the left, and our once again, 3 more beautiful watches. So if you like,
Thanks, man.
If you like those ones, go get them. Another thing I noticed is that you have Labonte Basic and Rutherford Basic. You threw out some free versions of those faces. So I think that's awesome.
It's my sneaky way to try and get people to come pro.
Well, it's also a good thank you to followers. That's
for sure.
I think that's awesome that you do that. I try to do that a little bit more than I have been, but time is just such a big thing with a toddler.
Yes.
So Um, Getting kind of towards the end of our show here. What are some of the other designers that you like?
Whew, I knew you were going to ask that, so I wrote it down so I wouldn't miss anybody. Um, well, there's this Orakix guy. Like I said, the 3D is just absurd. I hope you do a video on that soon because it's just crazy to watch. Like doing flyovers, going through the indices on the watch face. It's like, what? It just shows how much work goes into these things. It's crazy. But in terms of like a brand perspective, you can think of cyberpunk. I think the way you can look at a watch and tell immediately that is cyberpunk. I think that's awesome
Yeah,
to have that sort of branding.
he
You could
has a very unique style, that's for sure.
Right, and there's several other designers you could put in there in that same sort of idea of branding, like Lindley. I think as well. There's In Motion, Generator, Vader. Those guys do a really good job they have a wide range of work all over the board. But everything is just like super high quality, which I really appreciate. It's not like they just do one thing just to get it out. I want to do one of these. They put thought and effort into each of those, which I really appreciate. There's Mike O'Day, like I said, just a code wizard, and the some of the realism he gets with his designs is really really nice as well. There's the obviously Gauss is just absurd, but on we mentioned it before, like the amount that he's willing to help it just makes me appreciate him even more. Like you can look at the watch faces and the amount. What I'm getting at is that translates into the watches that he creates. So you look at those and they have like 30 different backgrounds and 20 different colors, and you can turn off and on all these different things, and it's like 100 different watches in one. So if you want bang for your buck, go download some Gauss faces. um,
Yeah.
it's crazy. Some others, Dario, can't not mention Dario. He always surprises me. He'll do all these beautiful, intricate, real faces, and then out of nowhere, you're getting like a Picasso face. It's just bizarre and fun, but it's cool. And then the virtuoso, I think, of the whole platform, GRR. Everything he does is gold, basically. And then who else? Who am I forgetting? Oh my gosh,
Oh, you wrote him
Almarinov.
down.
I know. Well, I'm out of my list, but I know there's more. Almarinov is like virtuosic in the amount of phases. Like they all look great, but that guy's busting out like one per day easily, which
Yeah.
is admirable.
Yeah, I wish I
I'm
could
sure I'm
strive for
forgetting a
that.
million people, so I apologize in advance for everybody I didn't mention. But
Well, you got to leave some for other interviews.
that's true. That's true.
All right. So, do you have a favorite face of yours, like that's your
Oh,
favorite work that you've done?
ooh, gosh, I didn't actually think about that one. Uh, in terms of visual design, I could really pick from a few from that race series. I really find, all right, let's go with this. The one that I find myself wearing the most of my own is the Ascot. I just like the simplicity and the colors of it, really. So yeah, I'll pick that one.
All right. Ascot it is. I told you I'd throw you a few curveballs just to kind
Yeah.
of to get a feel for it. But so then, what do you have a favorite face that's not yours?
I did think about that one, and it's really freaking tough because there's so many that I like. But I think the one that I keep going back to and thinking about is one of Dario's, and it's a whole series really. It's his Pathfinder series.
Okay.
Everything is super legible. It's realistic, but everything is very legible, which isn't an easy thing to do with smartwatches. But it's just a cool kind of original design as well. It's taking inspiration from classic watch face design and putting his spin on it, which I thought was really cool.
Awesome. So I think we're gonna end the video with one last question, and that's just a wrist check. What are you wearing on your watch today?
I don't know if you're going to be able to see that. It's going to be blurry.
Uh,
But
oh,
this is.
I see my logo in it.
Oh, really?
The reflection with my logo on
it. This is Generators. Generator Studios does some awesome work. This is I think it's his latest series, the Jaeger 1, and he does a great job. Especially recently, he's been doing a lot of analog / digital, the combination there, and you can kind of choose what you want and all that stuff. So this is I think it's a really cool one. It's very well balanced.
And this is the one that we've got on the screen so everybody can see. This is Generator Studios Jaeger. So yeah, and I actually really enjoy this one as well. It's very well put together. I do love a good hybrid.
Yeah.
And this is what is that? It says TM1.
The Jaeger 1, the TM1, Jaeger TM1.
Yeah, it's very, very small on my
screen,
that
right?
But I think that's what it is. So yeah, and actually, speaking of which, this kind of lined up really, really interestingly because Generator Studios is actually going to be the next person that I'm going to be interviewing. So that's actually kind of an interesting coincidence.
It's like we thought about it.
Yeah, well, actually, we did think about it, but it was also coincidence. This did actually happen for real. We didn't set this up. But yeah, Generator Studios is going to be the next interview that I do. I don't really have like a production time on it quite yet because this is all new to us. We're trying to figure out the process, but yeah, I'm really excited to get to take a look more into his brain and see how he is able to make the crazy awesome watch faces that he does.
Yeah, that dude he's super helpful as well, like just a good human, which I really appreciate. But man, he has a lot of skills outside of watch face design as well, like illustration and stuff like that I hope you guys talk about because he's a super interesting guy.
Awesome. All right, man. Well, thank you so much for joining us today and telling us a little bit about your workflow and how you do things and how you are able to create all these awesome watches.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me. Thanks for letting me be your guinea pig. Yeah. I hope I didn't ruin the whole thing. So
I mean, I enjoyed it. I hope everyone else does too. But there's a lot of good information in there too. So worst case scenario, hopefully they learn something.
I will cheers to that with apple juice.
Right. All right. In my water.
All right, man. Well, I'll let you get back to your 2-year-old, and I will do the same.
All right, man. All right. Thank you again. I appreciate it, and I look forward to talking with you more and seeing your next work.
Thanks, man. Talk to you later.
All right. Take it easy. All right, everybody. That was Nathan Trafford. Super excited to get to talk to him a little bit. As for like we had talked about earlier, I am going to be doing tutorials. I will be doing them on anything and everything that I can think of facer related, and designing, building your brand, everything that I can think of. I'll also be doing the more interviews. Like I said, Generator Studios is coming up next soon. I will also be bringing on guest designers, I should say, to come in and actually teach us something too. So not just talk about how they do things, but like say, we need a little bit of help on coding. We'll bring somebody on that knows their stuff when it comes to coding. And then I'll also attempt to do some watch reviews and possibly watch face reviews, kind of depending on, you know, if people are going to be interested in actually watching it. But on that note, I'm going to get out of here. Thank you so much for watching. I look forward to seeing you again soon on another episode of Watch Orakix. And take care, everybody. Some of your designs have quickly became one of my favorites, and we were just kind of talking about other things recently, and I was like, you know what, this guy would be perfect for the first episode. So, whoa,
Son of
he disappeared.
a...
You can't have a video without some kind of technical difficulty.
Are you serious?